Sometimes I wait for the TikTok shives. Sometimes I'm in the other window checking for the last any stragglers who are submitting like last second questions, and then I click over to the live stream window and I'm like, has Dana said TikTok shives? Okay, Dana said TikTok shives. I can start. Anyway, hi everybody. Welcome to the show. Glad you could join me as always. Hi to everybody in the chat. And as always, I will be starting with the pre-submitted patron and member questions. So if you are with us live and you have something you would like to talk to me about in the chat, or most especially if you were intending to be generous this evening and toss a super chat my way, which is always very welcome and very appreciated, if possible, please hold off on that until I get through the patron and member questions, because then and only then will I be paying full attention to the live chat. So I'll do the patron and member questions, and then it's just me and you in the live chat for the rest of the show. So let's get started with the first of the patron and member questions, which this time comes from our old pal David Colby, who is immune to daylight savings time, apparently. See, I spent half a year with sleep apnea, which taught me the real meaning of sleep deprivation. Missing an hour of sleep, baby time. You try and miss half a year of sleep and you know what's fucking what. Anyway, due to wacky case of mistaken identity and the real showrunner being run over by an ambulance, you are now in charge of Star Trek and have a room full of lore-obsessed nerds writing for you. How do you kill them? Gently take them to a river and shoot them in the back? Or do you gloat? No, I do take them to the river, but I take them to the river all bound together in a giant burlap sack, and I drown them like a litter of unwanted puppies. Which, by the way, I would never do to an actual litter of puppies. Never, ever, ever, ever would I do that. But yes, that is how I would kill my writer's room full of lore-obsessed nerds. It's the right thing to do. It's the kindest way, I think. Because, according to The Prestige, drowning is the best way to die. And I mean, The Prestige, I feel like that's the most reliable source. So I would prestige them. But, not in a magic trick. I would just drown them in a river. Luxinda, I'm having surgery today, meaning Friday when this airs. Ah, very nice. Very nice. Very showbiz of you. So I'm hoping you won't consider these questions to be lazy. For some reason, I'm unnaturally distracted and probably will be all week because surgery. Part 1. What question about you has no one asked yet, but definitely should? Please place your answer, which should be a question, in Part 2. So here's Part 2 from Cindy. Part 2. What's your answer to the question that was your answer to Part 1? Hopefully I will be totally fine and enjoying this two-parter live when you answer. Thanks. Best wishes to you. I hope that everything's going well. So what question should people ask about me? What question has no one asked about me, but definitely should? What is your favorite wrestling match ever? And what's the answer to that? The answer to my favorite wrestling match ever is probably Steamboat versus Savage from WrestleMania 3. Although they just put up a 3.5-hour compilation of some of the great Steamboat versus Ric Flair matches, including the immortal 1989 trilogy. And I watched some of those earlier today when I had some time, and boy, those babies hold up too. Oh, Flair versus Steamboat. Oh my God. But I feel like I would probably, if you put a gun to my head, I'd say I'd say Savage versus Steamboat. And somebody has probably asked me that before, but I've forgotten. And I will literally take any excuse, no matter how, faint, to talk about professional wrestling. Zulu Romeo, who has a cold at the most inconvenient time, just as the world is coming to an end. I know, right? We could at least have our health. I realize that this week you're going to be inundated with understandably worrying questions about Epstein, Trump, Iran, Israel, and the very strong probability that World War III has begun in earnest and that everything is going to end in the most painful, tormentive, and despairing way. So I'll keep it light. Which would you rather fight? 100 virus-sized elephants or one elephant-sized virus? Oh, one elephant-sized virus, to be sure. Because if something's the size of an elephant, you can probably kill it a lot easier than if it's the size of a virus. Viruses are hard to kill. Viruses are real hard to kill. Like they need like their own separate category of drugs. You know, like just a regular antibiotic ain't going to do shit to a virus. So if you have a virus-sized elephant, I mean, what are you going to do with that? If you have 100 virus-sized elephants and any time and they could enter your bloodstream at any moment, like that's no, I'm not fucking with that. But an elephant-sized virus, okay. You can, I mean, I'll borrow. I don't own a gun, but I mean, I've got relatives. It's Western Maryland. I'll borrow a gun from somebody. I can kill a fucking elephant-sized virus if it comes down to that. So yeah, one elephant-sized virus, please. Dev, hi, Steve, longtime viewer, first-time caller. Are you ready for Avengers Doomsday? Yes. I will say, I mean, I'm not like giddy with anticipation because even though I really enjoyed the last big Avengers mega crossover, I mean, I enjoyed Infinity War and Endgame for what they were. My favorite movies in the Marvel universe are the one sort of the one-offs or the standalones or the ones like Guardians of the Galaxy where it is a series but it's off in its own little corner, you know, or like, you know, the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies where again, like, yeah, I mean, Iron Man shows up sometimes. There's crossovers and stuff, you know, Doctor Strange is in the last one, but it's mostly off in its own corner. And it's like, oh, this is Spider-Man stuff. You know, this isn't like all of the MCU. This is Spider-Man stuff. And so I tend to like those better than, you know, the Avengers movies where it's every character you've ever heard of, you know. But I'm looking forward to Avengers Doom. More than anything, I'm curious. I'm curious to see if they manage to pull it off. Because from what we've heard about it so far, it could either be just a smashing success or a flop, the likes of which has never been seen. And I'm really hoping it's a success because I like the MCU and I don't wish for it to fail. I like superheroes. I like the Marvel movies. But, you know, my fingers are crossed and my curiosity is piqued. But yes, I am ready for Avengers Doomsday and for Secret War as well. Deninox, why are fascists always drawn to what's antithetical to fascism? Star Trek, Star Wars, punk rock, Starship Troopers. Well, I think there may be two things going on that explain it. The first is fascists like to take over things and infect things and sort of claim things for their own because by and large, they are not terribly creative, imaginative people. So there's not very much, if any, like actual memorable fascist art. Fascists aren't good at creating art. So they need to take over and co-opt other people's art in order to put their stamp on culture. So that's what they do. So they find things that are already popular, that already have, you know, carved out a space for themselves, and then they try to say, that's mine. That's part of it. I think the other part of it is they have very, very poor media literacy. And when they watch something like Star Wars or Star Trek, or they listen to punk rock music, they just assume that it's on their side. You know, they assume that what a punk rocker means by being against the establishment is what they as a Nazi mean. And it's not the same thing, but, you know, they're dumb. They have very poor media literacy. I mean, look at how some of the people, not even, I mean, it's not even, not all of them are even like proper fascists, but they have, you know, right-wing political leanings. Look at how those types of fans talk about Star Trek. It's like they watched a completely different show than the rest of it. So I think that's part of it too. They just have really, really bad media comprehension. Carlisle the Cinephile, greetings, Steve. I watched your recent comment response video and was really intrigued by what you said about Gene Roddenberry and how the Star Trek fandom deifies him, despite him not being solely responsible for Star Trek's success. I think that same principle applies to Star Wars as well concerning George Lucas. Would you agree? Frankly, I think Star Wars succeeded largely in spite of him rather than because of him. And that's coming from someone who unironically likes the prequels. Um, yes, I would say, and it's probably even more the case with Star Wars and Lucas than it is nowadays with Roddenberry and Star Trek. Because even though Roddenberry still enjoys like a very lofty perch as the creator of Star Trek, enough time has gone by since his death, enough Star Trek has been made completely without him, like where he played no role in it at all. Like it was conceived before, after he died. That I think, there's enough people realize now, oh, okay, it wasn't just Gene Roddenberry. Like maybe he still gets too much credit, I think, from a lot of people. But people realize, oh, okay, Star Trek wasn't just a Gene Roddenberry thing. He created it, but a lot of other people came in and did their part. With Star Wars, because for so many years, I mean, and remember, it hasn't been this way for a while, but for a long time, for like the first, 20 years or so of the existence of Star Wars, it was 3 movies. Like after Jedi came out in 83, there was no new Star Wars in terms of like theatrical features. There were like cartoons and stuff. And obviously there were the tie-ins, the comics and the novels. But in terms of like mainstream Star Wars stuff, there was no new Star Wars stuff until 1999 when Phantom Menace came out. So it was 3 movies. And George Lucas really was thought of as the mastermind behind the whole. And of course, the prequels were his. Like he directed all 3 of them. He wrote or co-wrote all 3 of them. So even after the prequels came out, I was like, this is George Lucas's thing. It's his. It's not anybody else's. And it was never that. It was never fair to say that either, because George Lucas had, obviously he created it and he wrote and directed the first Star Wars and he wrote the story for Empire, but he didn't write the screenplay and he didn't direct it. And same thing with Jedi. He wrote the story and co-wrote the screenplay, but he didn't direct it. And, most people, especially people my age, who look at Star Wars the way I look at it, would say that Empire Strikes Back is the best one. And it's the one that George Lucas had the least directly to do with. I mean, obviously he was involved. He was a producer and he was there. He was part of the process of making it, but he didn't write it and he didn't direct it. He had the least direct creative input into that one, and it's the best one. But Star Wars as a franchise is still largely thought of as, well, that's George Lucas's thing. Even though, again, he sold it to Disney many years ago now and hasn't had anything directly to do with it since then, but it's still thought of as George Lucas's thing. So I think Star Wars is even a better example of that than Star Trek has been. MW Ridger knows you don't give a shit about D&D, but bear with me, please. Since you said please. Very important, that little word. D&D is my biggest hobby. I know that I've spent at least 50,000 hours on its games, books, shows, movies, and creating my own stuff. And I've thought countless times about how grateful I am that Gary Gygax, the creator of D&D, is dead. He stole from co-creators and repeatedly publicly spouted vile, sexist, and racist shit until his death in 2008. I'm so glad that fuck's not on Twitter. It would suck the fun out of D&D for me. Are you glad any creators of the stuff you like are quietly rotting? Yes. I would say, I don't know, not necessarily glad, but yes, there are artists whose work I deeply admire, whose work means a great deal to me, who are dead. And the fact that they are dead, and the one I'm thinking of, which I'll mention in a moment, the fact that they have been dead for a very long time, definitely makes certain things easier. The one I'm thinking of is Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was not like you described Gary Gygax. As far as we know, he was not, at least he was not particularly racist or sexist. I mean, he was a man of his time, so I'm sure some of his attitudes would be seen as, unacceptable by our standards today. But for his time, he was not considered racist or sexist. In fact, politically, he was considered quite progressive. But that wasn't the problem with Charlie Chaplin. The problem with Charlie Chaplin was he had apparently a lifelong fascination with very young girls, underage girls, girls who were in their teen years. You know, we know that he had affairs with 15, 16-year-old girls, or at the very least met girls when they were, you know, in their teen years, and then kind of groomed them and waited until they were legal and then had affairs with them. Just a lot of really creepy, gross, unacceptable, predatory behavior from Charlie Chaplin toward very uncomfortably young girls. And that's something that when I look at his work, which I still to this day consider some of the greatest work in the history of cinema, City Lights to me is still one of the greatest films ever made, and it always will be. And Chaplin is an amazing actor, an amazing performer. He was a genius. So I have to take all of that really, 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 really shitty stuff about him and just kind of put it in a box in order to enjoy the work. Most of which I discovered before I knew all of this about Charlie Chaplin. So it makes it a little more complicated. Like, I loved him and his work already. And then I found out, oh shit, what's over here in a box? And the fact that he is not alive for us to deal with in the present moment makes that a lot easier. That separation of art from artist is a lot easier to do when it's more abstract, when the artist in question is gone and they have done all the bad and all the good that they're ever going to do, and all you have left is their legacy and their work. And it's a lot easier, if you so choose, or if you are able to, because you don't have to, but if that's what you want to do or you're able to do, it's a lot easier to separate the art from the artist and still enjoy and appreciate the work while maintaining an understanding that in their life, apart from their work, they did some truly, truly heinous things. And again, not everybody has to separate the art from the artist. If you find some shit out about, if you know these things about Charlie Chaplin and you say to yourself, well, I'm never going to watch another Charlie Chaplin movie again. That's ruined City Lights for me. That's ruined, the Gold Rush. I can't, that's completely fair. I understand that and I respect that. But as someone who has separated the art from the artist in this case, I tell you, it's a lot easier when the artist is no longer with us. Donovan, hey, Steve, I was wondering what your pick for most frustrating piece of media there is to hear people say keep politics out of it. Mine is the Metal Gear game series, a series which features very leftist commentary on things like online censorship, how soldiers are manipulated by the people running their nations into fighting for the leader's political agenda instead of for that nation's actual values or defense, Che Guevara, and above all else, a deeply anti-nuke message. The obvious answer from me is Star Trek, because, I've gotten comments about that on my Star Trek videos this week. Like, I literally get comments like that almost on a constant basis on my recent and older Star Trek videos from people that are like, oh, as soon as you brought politics into it, I stopped watching. All right, well, good for you. I don't want you around here anyway. Get the fuck out. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Oh no, I lost you. You're not going to watch my videos anymore because I mentioned politics in a Star Trek video? Oh no, what can I do to bring you back? Get the fuck out of here. But I talk about that a lot. So here's another example. And it's not quite as expansive of a thing as Star Trek, but it's in its way even more inexplicable. And it's the movie RoboCop, which, unlike Star Trek, because Star Trek clearly has political messaging all through it, but Star Trek as a work altogether, as a collection of works, Star Trek isn't pitched primarily as a satire, which RoboCop is. And I really don't know how anyone over the age of like 12 can watch RoboCop and not pick up on the fact that, yes, it's an action movie, but it's very clearly a blatant and very sharp, pointed satire of corporatism, of law enforcement, of capitalism and modern culture in all kinds of ways. Like how do you miss that? And how do you complain about, well, I stop trying to make RoboCop political. Some people just will try to make anything political, even RoboCop, when it's pointedly and obviously a political satire. So that's the one that makes me shake my head when because I mean, I don't hear that as often as I hear that about Star Trek, but I don't make videos about RoboCop all the time. But, every so often on social media, I'll be scrolling through and I'll see either somebody making that comment or somebody responding to somebody making that comment. Everybody tries to make RoboCop political. Like, yeah, because it is. That's one that I can pick. Steve. Hey, Steve. Hey, Steve. I'm a big fan. Thank you for all the content you make. Yours is my favorite channel on the web. Oh, thank you, Steve. I'm sorry that I'm going to have to disappoint you here in a few seconds. My question for you is, will you be making a retrospective episode analysis of Firefly? No. Longtime viewers of the Wednesday live stream that Dana and I co-host, where we do an alternating watch along of Star Trek Deep Space Nine and currently the David Suchet Agatha Christie's Poirot series, will know that before we did Poirot on the non-Star Trek weeks, right before that, we did, I can't remember the name of the show, but we did an animated show from Netflix that I cannot remember the fucking name of, but I really enjoyed it. And then before that, we did Firefly. We started Trek reluctantly as, 1 week we would watch Deep Space Nine and the other week we would watch Firefly. Right. So, and that was the first time I had watched the whole show. I didn't watch Firefly when it came on. I got the first season, or the only season. I got it on DVD as a birthday present many years ago, and watched maybe the first few episodes and then never watched the rest of it. And then when we watched it through for Trek Reluctantly several years ago, I mean, I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was bad, but I didn't get what the big deal was. Like, I still don't get why it's one of those shows that people just will not let it the fuck go. Like, it was fine. It was good. It had moments of brilliance. I liked a lot of things about it. But I mean, let it go, man. Like, just let it go. It's over. It was a nice little show. It lasted for a year and now it's over. And I wasn't that impressed by it. I didn't think it was bad, but I wasn't that impressed by it. So no, I am not going to be doing any Firefly videos because I'm just not that invested in it. And I really don't have that much to say about it. So sorry. I hope I'm still your favorite channel. Thank you very much for being a supporter and for sending in a question. Old Donnie Trump, who got bored of diddling kids, so he decided to bomb them instead. Well, variety is the spice of life. When is this motherfucker going to die? Every day he continues to draw ill-deserved air into his disgusting, putrid lungs. That's one more day of my life I have to spend on an earth cursed by his presence. He lives like a slovenly pig. He doesn't take care of himself at all. Why won't he just die? How much longer are we going to have to endure this man? I don't know. My very best friend in the whole wide world, Jason Harding, called me earlier today, and we talked about this for a little bit, among other things. And the observation I made was, hopefully it's not going to be all that much longer, because right this moment, wherever he is, whatever he is doing, Donald Trump is eating a Filet-O-Fish sandwich from McDonald's. And that's gotta kick in at some point, right? Like you can't keep you know what, you can't keep cheating the Grim Reaper that way. We've all got only so many Filet-O-Fish sandwiches in us before we're done. And I feel like Trump is way over his quota. So it's got to be soon. It's got to be soon. Come on, Filet-O-Fish. Come on. For me, for America. Let's do this. You know, what are we waiting for? But no, I don't know how much longer it's going to be. However much longer it is, it'll be too long. But hopefully soonish. Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed. William Tucker, we've had 3 or 5 Harley Quinn movies, none of them good. She's a tragic, mad character. Mad Love was brilliant. Paul Dini left a skid mark in the mythos. Thoughts? Well, I disagree with you. I guess it depends on what we're counting as a Harley Quinn movie. I thought Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn was great. I really liked that movie. I watched it again just a couple of months ago and enjoyed it just as much as I did when I watched it the first time. I really, really, really liked that movie. And she's also in the James Gunn version of The Suicide Squad, which is brilliant, which I absolutely love. So if those are 2 of the 3 or 5 Harley Quinn movies you're talking about, then I disagree with your premise. I think those 2 movies are great. She was in the original Suicide Squad, the David Ayer one, which is terrible, which is just absolute dog shit. But yeah, I'm not sure what other movies she's been in that you're counting. But so no, I actually, in terms of at least in terms of like the Margot Robbie version, I think her track record is pretty good, you know? I mean, and look, Mad Love was brilliant. That's a great, the TV episode of it is good. And the original comic is brilliant. I did a Best Batman Ever video about that. It's great. Paul Dini is a great writer. Bruce Timm, who was the artist for the original comic, is great. Mad Love is a masterpiece. But that doesn't mean that that's the only good Harley Quinn story. And like I said, I thought the Birds of Prey movie and James Gunn's Suicide Squad were both fantastic. So I think we just disagree on the quality of those movies. General Contact Unit Problem Child, I don't agree with the following. I've seen leftists saying Trump coming back worse after Biden means if it's Newsom 2028, it's better if he loses. 4 years of insufficiently progressive, transformative Democratic rule would just result in fascism coming back worse and more effective in 2032. If you just let them stay in power, they'll at least be less dangerous than they'd be after 4 years rebuilding, and you can spend 4 years finding an actual progressive to replace them. Thoughts on that argument? Yeah, some people just really, really, really want an excuse not to vote and to feel good about it. That's my thought on it. That's all that is. That is an attempt at a rationalization to make a virtue out of not holding your nose and voting for Gavin Newsom, should it come to that. Gavin Newsom is definitely not my first choice. If he does indeed run for president in 2028, I probably won't vote for him in the primary. I mean, I don't know who else is going to be on the ballot, but I mean, he's not my first choice for the sort of cavalier willingness he's shown to throw the trans community under the bus, for the way he seems entirely too eager to reach out to not just like Republicans in general, but like far right Republicans. There's just a lot about him that I'm uncomfortable with and that I would prefer not to have to, overcome in order to vote for him. But if he's the candidate in the general election in 2028, you will have to chain me to a chair to keep me from voting for him. Of course I will vote for him if he is the Democratic nominee. And there are a lot of people who want to not do that and be patted on the back for it and think that they're actually doing a good thing. Oh, well, if the choice is between Donald Trump's successor and Gavin Newsom, well, it's better to just let the Republican win, because then things will get so bad that we'll really elect a real progressive next time. So that's your plan. Let's let things get even worse. So I guess fuck all the people who will suffer in that additional period of shittiness. Fuck those people, because your plan is, well, we'll just let the Republicans control things for another term. And by then, oh, that'll definitely wake everybody up, because Trump hasn't been bad enough. But 4 more years of whoever Trump's successor is carrying on similar policies, well, that's going to make it so much worse that definitely everybody will wake up then, and we'll nominate a real progressive and we'll really change things. Just admit that you're a pussy and you choose your conscience and your ideological purity and your moral comfort over the good of the country. Just admit that. I could at least respect the honesty. I can't respect the choice, but people who come up with these arguments and try to make it sound like a good thing if another Republican becomes president for another 4-year term, it's not only that they're too cowardly to hold their nose and vote for a candidate that isn't everything they want. They're too cowardly to even admit that's what they're doing. Just be a fucking grown up and admit that's what you're doing. Just say you don't want to vote for Gavin Newsom. Just say you would rather let the country continue go down the shitter than vote for a candidate that you don't want to vote for. Just admit that. Because that's what it is. And it has nothing to do with what a piece of shit Gavin Newsom is because he's better than the Republican. I'll spoil it for you. If Gavin, with all of my reservations about Gavin Newsom, if Gavin Newsom is the Democratic nominee in 2028, he's going to be better than the Republican. Mark my fucking words. And if you don't want to vote for him because he's not as progressive as you want him to be, and you're happy to make it easier for the Republican to win, just fucking say that. Just say you're choosing your own conscience and your own comfort over biting the bullet and doing something that would, even if it is just going to be harm reduction, it's going to be better than it would be if the Republican won. And that's not good enough for you. You'd rather be pure. You'd rather be able to say, well, at least I didn't vote for Gavin Newsom. Okay, just say that. Just admit that's what you're doing. Just stop being a fucking chicken shit and admit that that's what you're doing. Because that's all that is. That's all that is an attempt to manufacture an excuse. Oh, no. I'm playing the long game. That's why I didn't vote for Newsom. I'm playing the long game to get a real progressive in there. Sure you are. Who the fuck do you think you're kidding with that shit? That's what I think of that argument. Andy Lawler doesn't feel reassured that Condoleezza Rice is apparently advising the shit show on Iran. Oh, really? You don't, there's based on her track record, that doesn't make you feel any better? Hey, Steve, regarding your Nico Case video, to your writer's mind, are lyricists poets? My brother convinced his high school senior comp teacher to let him write his research paper on John Anderson of Yes, as being a lyricist qualified him as a poet. I initially scoffed, but quickly agreed, considering the emotional impact of many a song lyric. Your thoughts? Thanks, and have a great weekend. Oh, absolutely. Lyricists are poets. Absolutely. Listen to a Nico Case song that she wrote the lyrics for, which is most of them, and tell me that she's not a fucking poet. I was out for a walk today and I was listening to music, and one of the songs that came on my playlist was the Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard version of Pancho and Lefty, the Ballad of Pancho and Lefty. You listen to that song and tell me that fucking Townes Van Sant, who wrote that song, isn't a fucking poet or wasn't a fucking poet. You listen to a Hank Williams song, Hank Williams Sr., and tell me that man wasn't a poet. You listen to Hank Williams lyrics that are so fucking perfect. The meter, the rhymes, the structure, and it's not just that they're technically perfect, although they are. I mean, I'm talking about like his very best songs. And even some of his not so best songs, like fucking Kalijah, which is a really problematic song. that has some very sort of insensitive and old-fashioned anachronistic attitudes toward indigenous people that we would consider very, poor taste today. Even that song, it's in terms of its lyrical structure and its musical structure, just it's a fucking perfect song. And it's not just that his lyrics were technically perfect and had just the right meter and just the right number of syllables, and the rhymes were just, there's emotion, there's sadness and longing and regret. He was a fucking artist. He was a fucking poet. Yes, lyricists are poets. Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are. Neil, who alas is missing the live stream this time. I'm planning to be in DC for AwesomeCon this weekend. Honestly, I'm both excited and not getting my hopes up. I respect your indifference to those types of events. Your channel, on the other hand, is always guaranteed to engage me. The most recent Best Superman ever was a masterstroke. You understand the point of your videos is to go past informing. The relevance of that story was just perfect. Thank you for the reminder. It's up to us to do what Superman would want us to do, even in Bizarro World. I like the way you put that. Thank you very much for saying nice things, Neil. I'm glad you enjoyed that video. And I have a good time at AwesomeCon. Have a good, I mean, you couldn't pay me to be there, but you're looking forward to it and you're going to go, and I hope you have a great time. Brian Baker, Steve, it's Friday the 13th at the time of your Ask Away. Do you have or follow any superstitions, either involving your productions or life in general? Criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot. Also, it's my birthday, so I'm asking your viewers to be nice to anybody out there today. Keep up the good work and keep kicking fascism's ass. Well, I don't know how much of its ass I'm kicking, but thank you. I'll keep trying. And happy birthday. I said that in the chat earlier, but on camera, happy birthday. I do not have any superstitions, which is somewhat surprising given how superstitious my granny was. I don't know I think I've talked about this once or twice before, but my granny, my mom's mom, my paternal grandmother I'm talking about, she was very superstitious, but I could never figure out if she was genuinely superstitious and she believed these things that she would say, or if she was just co-opting superstition to try and get us to behave better. Because most of the time I remember her mentioning a superstitious belief or expressing a superstitious belief, it was in the context of correcting us or objecting to something that somebody had said or done. Like if we were talking about somebody that I didn't like or that none of us in the conversation liked, and I said something like, oh, I wish he would just fucking die, oh, I wish he would get hit by a fucking car or something. Granny would say, don't say that. Because if you wish bad on someone, then that's what's going to happen to you. And I don't know if she really believed that, but she would say that almost every time she heard somebody like wish ill on another person. And like I said, I don't know if she really believed that or if she was just saying that because that was her way of trying to encourage us to be kinder to people, even people that didn't really deserve it. But whatever her reasoning behind it, she expressed a lot of superstitious beliefs and made a lot of superstitious statements. And for whatever reason, I never internalized that, especially the bit about not wishing harm to people, because I wish harm on people constantly. Like I wish gratuitous, grievous harm on people, like, oh, there's too many fan service references in that Star Trek video. I hope their head gets chopped off and their loved ones get blood squirted in their eyes from their neck stump. Like that's me. So I clearly did not learn the lesson that Granny was trying to teach me. Neil, who is delighted with Nico Case. All right. Your recent vulnerable presentation on the impact of Nico Case in your heart was a lot. On the one hand, I marvel seeing this side of you, sensitive, passionate, beyond the comedy and commentary. On the other hand, I must remember that you must only present so much of yourself in these snapshots, and that you must not give all of yourself away on YouTube. I'll risk it and extrapolate that you must be more amazing than the man we get to see, warts and all. Thank you for showing this side of strength. Well, thank you, Neil. And yeah, you are absolutely right about me. I am incredible. I truly am amazing. I truly am just, God, a remarkable human being with depth and humanity and compassion for everybody and amazing taste in everything I like, and attractive, just a natural, just sort of animal magnetism and undeniable charisma that draws people of all genders, of all backgrounds, of all orientations. They come flocking to me, desperate for my attention, because it's just who I am. It's just part of who I am. Is it a burden? Sometimes, but it is a burden that I am willing to carry because of the joy that it brings to other people. And thank you, Neil, for noticing that. And also, I'm glad you enjoyed Nico Case after that video I made. Debbie, I have something to tell you and ask you. I had wrote you on one of your askaways about did you ever want to go to a Star Trek convention? You answered no. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was a Star Trek exhibit. So I apologize. My question is, I'm not sure what the season was, but were Spock's parents different species? And why did Q call Captain Janeway Kathy? I must have missed something. Okay, these are a couple of questions, but these are easy. First, I guess it kind of depends on what the Star Trek exhibit is and where it is. Like, I've been to the Smithsonian and seen the Starship Enterprise model that's on display at the Air and Space Museum. I mean, that's a Star Trek exhibit, but I went to that. Like, that wasn't the only reason I went. I went just to go to the Air and Space Museum in general because it's one of my favorite places in the world. But yeah, that was a Star Trek exhibit that I went to and that I enjoyed. You know, you get to see one of the actual models that they used to film the show there. It was pretty cool. Spock's parents were a different species. Yes, Spock's father was Vulcan and Spock's mother was human. And Q called Captain Janeway Kathy because Kathy is her first name. Her name is Catherine Janeway, and Q called her Kathy in an overly informal way because he was trying to ingratiate himself to her. So he called her Kathy. So that because that's a form of her name. Amelia Cunningham, what are your thoughts on Superman American Alien? I don't like what became of the author, but it's hard because I find the way he portrayed Clark's growing up to be really well done, even its adaptation in Superman Man of Tomorrow. I have never read Superman American Alien, so I cannot give you any of my thoughts on it because I have none, because I've never read it. But since you mentioned it, I will make a note to seek it out and to read it as soon as possible. In fact, if I had seen your question earlier than today, when I finally went and collected all the questions and started putting the list together, I might have tried to read it earlier this week, depending on when your question actually came in. But no, I've never read it, so unfortunately, I can't give you my opinion. But I will make an effort to read it soon. So thank you for the recommendation, Commander Riker. The Commander Riker. Oh my God. Sorry for so flagrantly ignoring the one question limit last time. You know I can get carried away, but do you feel like you're trapped in the mirror universe? The political plot lines of the last 10 seasons of Earth sure are feeling stale and overused. It would be nice if the writing was a little more creative. It's like, oh, come on. Are people really that dumb? Like, this writing is really relying very heavily on these people just not being very smart. This isn't very good writing. Yeah. I have noticed that particular sort of half-joking interpretation has cropped up a lot in Star Trek fandom over the past 10 years or so. Oh man, I wish we lived in the prime timeline instead of the mirror universe. Like, I've noticed that, and it's funny in the way that makes you want to just start crying. Yeah, sucks to be living in the mirror universe. Brittany, has any piece of fiction genuinely changed how you think about ethics? Interesting. A piece of fiction that genuinely changed how I think about ethics. The Good Place didn't really change how I think about ethics, but it gave me different ways of thinking and understanding certain ethical concepts, like the idea that because society is so complicated and so interconnected, that it's basically impossible to live a quote unquote sinless life, that even if you make every effort to ethically engage with everything you engage with, there will be certain things where you just cannot avoid supporting something unethical in one measure or another. Like it's just something that you do will inevitably end up helping an entity that is exploiting people, or an entity that is actively harming people. Like you can and you should try your best, to avoid supporting unethical things, immoral things, if you can, but you can't really completely avoid it because of the fucked up way that the world is arranged. And I kind of knew that already, but The Good Place lays it out for you in a way that is easily digestible and is also really funny. And I appreciated that. So it didn't really change any of my opinions about ethics or any of my thoughts, but it gave me new ways of thinking about it and new ways of sort of picturing it and conceiving of it. So I would say The Good Place. Some random geek who just seems to always piss off liberals. Not that long ago, I reached 500 subs on YouTube. I just need to reach one more milestone to be monetized on YouTube, not for ad rev, but to have memberships and get super chats. I just need 381 more valid watch hours to reach the 3K mark. I'm not asking folks to pity watch my shorts, streams, and videos. I will have to make content folks want to watch. My question is, any suggestion of what to do to celebrate the 500 sub milestone? I got ideas, but I am open to other ideas. Good question. Let's see. You could eat 500 subs, but that's probably a lot, and probably not good for you to eat that much. You could eat a 500 calorie sub. You could either go to your favorite deli or sub shop, or get the ingredients yourself and make it yourself, and you eat it on a live stream, and determine ahead of time how many calories everything has. And it's a 500 calorie sub. It's probably not a lot of calories for a sub, especially if you count the bread, because there's usually a lot of calories in bread. But if you can figure out a way to make a 500 calorie sub sandwich that is, at least appetizing enough to eat, maybe do that and say, okay, I hit my 500 sub milestone, so now I'm going to eat my 500 calorie sub. There you go. It's probably going to wind up being a little dry, because once you get into, actually, no, you could put mustard. Mustard doesn't have a ton of calories. So you could use mustard for the condiment, the lubricant, and just be very careful with the meat and toppings so you don't go over 500 calories. But anyway, that's my really, really dumb idea that I just thought of. Some random geek reminding that capitalism creates poverty. Same old, same old. Joanna Roberts always needs money. Phoenix has no income whatsoever and still has bills and needs money for cat stuff and food. Both are always stressed out about not having enough money. They need folks who always give them money every month, like $1,500 each month. And folks, don't forget to share around charity links and share around Joanna and Phoenix's links on social media. More eyes on those links can help, but we have to end capitalism to get rid of poverty. And as always, charitylinks.page. And I will remind everybody of that again at the end of the show. Charitylinks.page to help out some friends of ours like Joanna and Phoenix and others who need a helping hand. Wolfram and Hart, evil attorneys at law. DC business and movies questions. While it might be good short term with cinemas for Paramount obtaining WB, I was concerned a large Middle East sovereign fund stakes $24 billion, but claims it's a passive minority share, the perhaps largest passive investment ever in history. Second, why not have a Justice League Dark with Matt Ryan's Constantine, Zatanna, and Batman? The DC animated movie for Dark are amazing, plus Swamp Thing. Well, I mean, I really having a Justice League Dark animated movie is one thing. Investing in a Justice League Dark live action movie is another. And I'm not saying it should be this way, but the way it's going to be viewed by the studio is, well, if we're going to do a live action Justice League Dark movie, then, it has to be a blockbuster. And I don't think Justice League Dark is a well-known enough property to necessarily support that. Now, that doesn't mean that they couldn't do it and it wouldn't be a big hit, but this is how the studio views things. It wouldn't surprise me if we get a Swamp Thing project within, the next few years. I feel like Swamp Thing is right up James Gunn's creative alley. And I mean, I'm not saying he would be directly involved, but he is the boss of the whole franchise at the moment. And I can very easily seeing him, getting excited about a Swamp Thing pitch from some writer director, who has a good idea for a Swamp, either a movie or like a limited series on HBO or something. So I wouldn't be surprised if Swamp Thing pops up. But the other thing about Justice League Dark, if they do Justice League Dark as a live action movie at some point, I would be very surprised if Batman was in it, just because I know once they figure out who and what their mainline DCU Batman is going to be, and he is going to be separate from the Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves Batman. It's going to be off in its own little corner doing its own thing apart from the main DCU. Once they figure out what their Batman is going to be, that's going to be one of their marquee players. Like, that's Batman. He's going to be doing Batman movies, and he's going to be doing like Justice League movies and team ups with other major characters. They're not going to want to put Batman in a Justice League Dark movie. That's just my guess. That's just my thought. So yeah, I wouldn't get my heart set on Justice League Dark, but Swamp Thing maybe. Farah Grimm, Guten Tag, Steve. My husband and I both wish you well. Thank you very much to both of you. It's shocking to me the mental gymnastics I see conservatives using to continue supporting Trump. They must all be twister champs with how flexible they are with reality. The biggest shame is members of Congress refuse to use the powers they have to reassert authority the executive branch has taken from them. Checks and balances only work if each branch insists on their constitutional authority being respected. What path forward do you see? The path forward is to elect as many Democrats as possible in the midterms and then keep the heat and the pressure on those Democrats to keep fucking doing something. Don't just, we took back the majority. Yay, the nightmare is over. No, you have to do stuff now. You have to do things like reassert your checks and balances power, like reassert the authority of the legislature over the executive branch in the ways that are described in the Constitution. Like, you need to do that. You need to hold people accountable. If you have the votes, which they probably won't, but if they have the votes, you need to start impeaching motherfuckers. Or at least hauling people in front of Congress as much as possible, in front of the American people on TV to say, explain yourself. You need to be doing anything you possibly can do with the amount of power that you have to put a stop to this, to slow this down, to hold the people who have committed the atrocities that have been committed, both literally, like by murdering people, and the atrocities against the rule of law and democracy and the sort of institutions of our nation, to account as much as you can. But the first step is we need to get the Republican Party as far out of power as we possibly can. And then once that's done, you need to put the pressure on Democrats and say, okay, we elected you, now fucking do something. This isn't over. We haven't won just because you got into office and you have a majority now. Fucking do something. That's the path forward. That's really the only path forward. Brian Baker, Steve, Ask Away is on Friday the 13th. Oh, I already did this one. Uh, it was a duplicate from Brian that I guess I missed. The Brain, Star Trek often claims humanity has moved beyond greed and money. So, what cultural or technological changes do you think would actually be required for that to happen in the real world? I mean, the optimistic way it could work is that there is some unstoppable, undeniable breakthrough in technology that would almost by necessity fundamentally change the way we think about things. Like if somebody created like a truly inexhaustible energy source, like if somebody created fusion power that was clean and inexpensive and virtually inexhaustible, and you could look at it and you could not deny it. You couldn't make the same excuses that people make about wind power or solar power. It wouldn't have the safety issues and the environmental issues that nuclear power has. It would be undeniable, right? And you say, okay, we have no excuse to keep burning coal. We have no excuse to keep burning oil. We have no excuse to continue polluting the environment the way we have been. This is the way. Like, this is what we have to do from now on. And no reasonable person could deny it. And then on the basis of that new form of energy, with affordable energy and electricity now in abundance more than ever, then other things can follow from that. You can say, why aren't we providing more necessities for people in need? Why are we forcing people in certain parts of the world to live in squalor? Why aren't we providing, food and power and transportation and all of these other things to people who don't? What excuse do we have now that it is, a cheap and virtually inexhaustible resource? Something like that could happen that would spark a massive change in society. Or the opposite of that could happen, and something really, really fucking horrible could happen that would devastate the global population, that would devastate global infrastructure, that would force humanity in a time of true survival and desperation to realize, oh, we have to put all this bullshit aside, which is kind of what Star Trek hints happened. I mean, the Vulcans showing up was kind of presented as the last piece of the puzzle, but the idea was, well, there was World War III, the planet was devastated, there were tens of millions of dead people, civilization was on the brink of collapse, and at that point we said, okay, no more fucking around, let's start to fix some of these problems. That's kind of the Star Trek version. People often forget, we jump ahead to the utopian future with transporters and replicators and spaceships, and we jump over the 50 million dead people in World War III that came right before the ramp up to that era. So it could be that could be it too. Either we achieve some wonderful, positive, optimistic breakthrough that makes us go, we can do better, or we survive some horrible apocalypse and some horrible catastrophe that forces us to go, we have to do better. Or it could be something completely different, or it just might not ever happen. Who knows? Danny K. Hey, Steve, I think this year I want to get into baseball. I've always liked it, but never really followed it. What would be a good way to prepare myself for the upcoming season in terms of narrative? Fair warning, fate and the happenstance of my birth has made me a Tigers fan. Thanks. Hope all is well. P.S. I don't wish the Orioles any specific harm. Well, thank you. I don't wish the Tigers any specific harm. I actually really like the Tigers. They're a team that goes way, way back. They're an old school American League team. I like the Tigers a lot. In terms of narrative, I'm not really sure what you mean. I mean, if you say you want to get into baseball, all you really have to do is start watching baseball games. If you're a Tigers fan, well, what TV station near you plays Tigers games? Or radio station plays Tigers games? Or, figure out how you're going to watch or listen to Tigers games, and then just start doing it. And see if you enjoy it. See if it's interesting to you. And if you don't have time to watch games all the time, or you just don't feel like watching games all the time, just follow the scores. Check the standings. If you're old school and you have a local newspaper that you read, check the standings in the sports section, or just go online every day during the season. Did the Tigers win last night? Just check ESPN or Google it or whatever. Just see what the state of the season is. How are the Tigers doing? Did they win last night? That kind of thing. Just get into it. Watch some games, listen to some games, keep up with how your team's doing. Just do it that way. I don't really know if there's anything you need to do to prepare. Just start watching some baseball and see if you enjoy it. And if you do, I hope you do enjoy it, because I love baseball. I don't watch nearly as much of it as I used to, or even nearly as much of it as I would like to. But when I do have a chance to sit down and actually enjoy a baseball game, there's very, very few things I enjoy more than that. It's just a wonderful sport if it pushes your buttons, if that's the kind of thing you like. A lot of people don't like it, but just start watching baseball, man. You don't need to do any homework. You don't need to prepare for it. Just check out a Tigers game and see how you feel. Agent Meister, who constantly wakes people up to ask them if they're asleep. Peldor Joy, Steve. No question this week, but I would like to thank you for your symposium on Klingon anatomy during the last Ask Away. Your thoughts on the anal and dual penile aspect of Klingon anatomy was fascinating. I honestly believe that your lecture last year on Kryptonian ejaculation would be a hard act to follow, but my mother and I both think that you knocked it out of the park 2 weeks ago. Thanks, Mom. We just can't wait for your next anatomy seminar. Your thoughts on kaiju mating mayhem. Because Godzilla's getting laid. That's happening. On the Klingon anatomy thing, if you pay attention to, I think it's episode 8 of Starfleet Academy, which is a really good episode, by the way. Jaden, the Klingon cadet, refers at one point to a part of the Klingon anatomy called the quadritesticle. Quad seeming to imply that there are 4 of them. So that would be 2 testicles per dick. So Klingons have 2 dicks and 2 testicles per dick for a total of 4 testicles, or quadritesticles. So this is yet more canonical evidence that Klingons got 2 dicks. So just put it out there. Again, you know me. I'm not a stickler for canon. I don't really care one way or the other, but for those of you that do, yet more evidence in a canonical Star Trek production that Klingons got 2 dicks, because they also got 4 testicles. So just putting it out there. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm glad your mom enjoyed it. Endarth, stage name. Hey, Captain. So wrestling is theater. Oh, it's a wrestling question. So wrestling is theater, but with a 360-degree view audience, right? Wrestlers are actors. The ring is a stage. The match is a play. I guess the real question is, would wrestling be improved as a musical? Some wrestling might be. I can think of some wrestling shows I've seen that would have been improved if they were musicals. In general, I will say no. In general, and this is something that I have said many times when I've discussed wrestling, and I've even used wrestling as an example, of a more general kind of storytelling just to make this point. Wrestling, to me, is at its very best when you keep it as simple as possible. Don't dress wrestling up. Don't try to make wrestling more complicated than it is. Let wrestling be wrestling. That's when it's really good, to me, and I think to a lot of people who are wrestling fans. if you try to make it too complicated, if you try to make it too fancy, if you approach wrestling like another form of drama, and you think, oh, we need to the storylines need to be more complicated. Stop. You're fucking it up. It needs to be simple. It needs to be basic. It is a form of theater, but it's a very low form of theater. And I don't say that to insult it. That's just what it is. Right? It's not champagne. It's not a perfectly aged Pinot Noir that's been in somebody's cellar for 20 years waiting for the perfect day to pop the cork. It's Pabst Blue Ribbon. It's beer, and not even fancy beer. It's pro wrestling is a really good, affordable beer that you would go to a liquor store and buy a case of. That's pro wrestling. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not to everybody's taste. Not everybody likes it, but there's nothing wrong with it as it is. And that's what it should be. Simple, uncomplicated, fairly direct. And if you lock in on it and it's your kind of thing, when it's done well, it is immensely satisfying and fun and engaging and even engrossing. So in general, no. Wrestling would not be improved as a musical. It would be improved by stripping off the layers of bullshit that a lot of people have layered onto it, especially over the last 15 or 20 years, but really over the last 30 or 40 years, if you want to get real deep with it. And just remember what it is. And remember that it doesn't have to be anything else but wrestling. And I think that's the end of my answer to the wrestling question. Thank you very much for that. Kara the Tolkien. I'm going to assume that you meant Kara the Tolkien nerd, because that's what you usually say. But or maybe you have discovered you are a long-lost member of the Tolkien family, in which case I hope you at least get some money for that. You have are you getting a piece of the estate? I hope so. I would speak to an attorney. Hi, Steve. With all the grief and misery Teflon Don has inflicted, and while I know you don't drink, if at all, what are you going to do to celebrate when the orange one slinks away into oblivion? I have a bottle of Prosecco stored in a cupboard for that fateful day. It's made using the champagne method, but can't be called such because it doesn't come from that area of France. Any thoughts, Cara? Yes, it's not true champagne unless it comes from the Champagne region. You're right. I don't drink alcohol. I don't have any alcohol in the house. I'm not like a teetotaler. It's not like a moral decision I've made. I just, as a matter of course, I don't drink. It's not something I do. It's not something I feel drawn to do. You know, if I'm over hanging out with my dad and I know I'm going to be there for a while and he says, you want a beer? I'll say, sure, I'll have a beer with you. But other than that, I don't drink. And I mean, honestly, I don't have plans for what am I going to do when Trump dies? You know, I don't have my equivalent of a bottle of Prosecco in the cupboard. I'm probably going to breathe a little sigh of relief. I'm probably going to say, oh, thank God, or go, what took so long? Something like that. Probably make a video about it as soon as I can come up with something interesting to say. And then just get on with it, just move on, because Trump going away, either by his death or by his impeachment or by his resignation or by him just serving out the rest of his term, is not going to fix everything. It's going to make certain things easier. It's going to make certain things better just because he's not going to be fucking around all the time anymore. But there are still going to be a lot of serious problems that need to be addressed. So it's, I'll probably take a moment to go, oh, it's over. At least his part of it is over. And then it's like, all right, now let's start digging our way out of this mess. So no, I don't have any plans specifically, other than I'll probably have something to say about it on camera when it happens. Jan, I just saw an interview with Hagerstown Rapid Response. If you haven't already, check them out. One of the organizers, Ethan Wechteluk, is running for Congress in the 6th District. if that's where you are. But my question, what is your opinion of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album, which I love, and is for me a beautiful anti-war message, perfect for today? I am familiar with Hagerstown Rapid Response. I don't know anybody involved with it, but I'm aware of their existence, and I mean, they any democratic or progressive presence in Hagerstown is incredibly encouraging to me. Um, what is my opinion of Dark Side? It's a great album. It's a great album. I mean, I can't say I've listened to it a ton. I think I've probably only listened to it as an album maybe once, maybe twice in my life. But I've heard a lot of the tracks from it over the years. It's a terrific album. I personally would not count it among my very favorites. Like, it's not one that I find myself going back to again and again. Like that video I made earlier this week or last week about Nico Case and her album Fox Confessor Brings the Flood. I mean, Dark Side of the Moon is not the equivalent of that for me. But it's still a great album. Yeah, I mean, I would never deny that it's anything other than a fantastic piece of work for sure. Jim P, who reminds his friends on the left, just being right isn't enough. It's always a good reminder for us to hear. Hey, Steve, I heard somewhere that some of the polarization in our politics comes down to when one side makes outrageous comments, it forces the other side to the more extreme position on their side. This causes basically a death spiral to both sides being on the most extreme positions. Do you see any merit to this? It makes sense, but seems too simple. Have a great night. I don't think that's what's going on. I mean, well, first of all, I don't consider the polarization to be the main problem. So I know a lot of people wring their hands and go, oh, things are so polarized today. Things are so partisan today. I'm not really that bothered by that. Having seen what the two poles are like and seeing that, yes, there are extremists on both sides, but the extremists on one side are a hell of a lot worse than the extremists on the other. Like, I am not that bothered by polarization. That is not the circumstance. That is not the factor, let's say, in modern American politics that draws my attention. I'm way more worried about what the right side of that polarized politic is doing. And what I see as the real problem is not one side gets extreme, so the other side gets more extreme. It's more like one side gets extreme, and then the other political party, which in theory is supposed to be the leftist party, but is actually more of a centrist party, doesn't move further to the left, but ends up moving a little bit further to the right because they think, well, if that's what people want, we need to find common ground. Like, and when you find common ground with people on the far right, it just moves you further and further to the right. So to me, that's a way bigger problem than people seeing extremists on the right and becoming even more extremist on the left. I really don't see that as a threat because the extreme people on the right are way more dangerous and are doing way more damage than really the extremists on the left have ever done in American history, at least. Like, what really, really serious long-term damage to the culture or our institutions have super extreme leftists ever done in the United States? Like, most of the really fucked up shit, and especially the fucked up shit that we're dealing with now, it's not coming from the extreme left. It's coming from the extreme right. And the extreme right isn't driving the extreme left further to the left. It isn't driving more people to the extreme left. It's taking people that should be fighting the extreme right and causing them to move further to the right because they keep trying to find compromise with them. So I think that's a way more serious problem than polarization. So but again, that's just my opinion. But I love your name line there. That just being right isn't enough. That's incredibly important for us to keep in mind. Max, enjoyed your recent Superman versus World Hunger video. Clearly he was limited as much by his views as powers. If given Superman powers, what would you do to improve the world? Where would you draw ethical lines? I mean, I think probably the only ethical lines that I would draw that are dramatically different than what we typically see Superman doing in the comics and in various other mediums that we see him in is I would want to try and use my powers to do things that would give power to people that don't have it. You know, I would not want, I mean, there's a part in Peace on Earth, the Superman comic that I did that video about most recently, where Clark says, you know, it's not my place to dictate policy. And I would be the same way. I would not want to use my superpowers to put myself in charge of anything, to be like, okay, I have the superpowers, I'm running the show here. Like, I would not want to be a dictator. No matter how well-intentioned, a dictator is still a dictator, and that's not what you want. That's not how people should be governed. That's not how society should be run. But I would like to think I would try to find ways to use my powers to put more resources and more power into the hands of people that don't have it. You know, whether that meant making sure that everybody had enough basic necessities so that they wouldn't have to rely on the people they have to rely on, whether that would mean, you know, doing some old school golden age Superman stuff and intimidating some corrupt industrial bosses to make sure that it's easier for people to unionize, or it's easier for people to get better pay, or it's easier for people to take control of their own destiny. Like, whatever it would be, I would want to use my powers to do things to try and give as much real lasting power, whether it's economic power or political power or whatever, to people that don't have it, so that they could then do a better job of not only providing for themselves, but advocating for themselves and improving their position even more. Like that, I would use my powers to do things like that, or at least I would try to. I don't know how successful I would be, but that would be one of my goals. I would definitely try to use my powers to drive positive social change, but I would try to do it in ways that did not empower me specifically, but that empowered other people. The Grumpy Monkey. How now, Steve? One of the questions you posed in a recent Trek Actually poll was if Cybach was a great character. It doesn't look like that video is going to be made, much to my chagrin, so I would be grateful if you could give your thoughts on Cybach and what it was that spawned your hypothesis. And run with me on this one. Trek Actually breakfast cereal. I'll bet you can hear the bags of money jingling already, am I right? Minus my consultancy fee, of course. We'll talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I would like to do that Cybach video eventually. You know, it's gonna keep popping up in the polls every so often until it does finally win one month. But no, I mean, just in general, I think my hypothesis is basically something to the effect of most of the reason that people have not liked Cybach is because A, he's the villain in a shitty movie, and B, they just don't like the idea of Spock having a brother, because Spock never had a brother in the original series, and Cybach was something that they just kind of made up for that movie. And there's that category of Trekkie that's like, my Spock never had a brother. And it's like, all right, nerd, shut up. So if you ignore that, if you don't worry about that, and you ignore the fact that, yeah, Star Trek V is kind of a shitty movie, and you just look at Cybach as a character, as a villain, as what he wants, as at his nature and his flaws, he's kind of an interesting character. You know, it's kind of cool to have an atypical Vulcan, you know, a guy who sort of thumbs his nose at the conventional Vulcan way of life, and he's not unemotional, he's not like super logical. He's very passionate. He's very spiritual. He's a lot of things that Vulcans typically aren't. And, you know, he's kind of a cult leader. he has this ability that, he believes he can free people of their pain, and he's used it to gather followers around himself. But at the center of him, even though he does a lot of really villainous things, and I think he is very villainous, I mean, he's a cult leader, and he does things that threaten our heroes. At the center of him is this very sort of innocent wish to just know God, you know? Like, that's what he wants. And that doesn't excuse any of the bad things that he does. But, like, his intention, he doesn't want power. He doesn't want to take over the Federation. He doesn't want to destroy anything. He doesn't want to, dominate anybody. He doesn't want to set himself up as like an emperor or ruler. He's not out for revenge against anybody. He's not motivated by any of the most common motivations that we see from villains in Star Trek movies or big sci-fi movies like that in general. He just wants to know the truth about God. He thinks he knows where God is, and he wants to go and see if he's right. And if he is, he wants to discover the true nature of God. And I just think that's a really interesting motivation to give a villain. And, I do wish it had been in a better movie, but that doesn't mean that Cybach himself is that terrible of a character, So yeah, that's basically the gist of what it would be. And it would probably, it would just be a lot longer than that with a lot more jokes, hopefully really filthy ones. Fox Aches. I discovered Girls and Cars right after TNG began, so I never really got into it, even though my mother and I were TOS fans. I was reintroduced in my 30s by a friend. I'm a die-hard fan today. Was there any point in your life without Trek in a similar way? Yeah, in the early to mid 2000s. Yeah, because I mostly dropped off of Voyager after Year of Hell. I would occasionally watch an episode here and there to see what was going on, and then I would usually go, okay, I'm not missing anything. I came back for Enterprise. I watched the first. Well, I think I was still watching Enterprise into season 3. I don't think I got all the way through season 3 the first time. I think I watched the first 2 seasons. And I was intrigued by the concept of season 3 and by the idea that they were clearly doing a storyline that was a direct response to 9/11. And I thought, let's see where this goes. And I watched it for a little while, and then I kind of lost interest. I don't think I watched any of season 4 when it originally aired at all, except for the last episode. And the same thing with Voyager. I came back for Voyager and watched the last episode of Voyager. But other than that, I really wasn't watching Star Trek during those years, during those final years of Voyager, and then again for those final years of Enterprise, that final year at least of Enterprise. I wasn't watching Star Trek. And then during that period where there just wasn't any new Star Trek being made between the end of Enterprise and 5 years later, when the first reboot movie came out, I wasn't watching. And then when the first reboot movie came out, I was there and I was into that. And I've been sort of a regular Star Trek viewer ever since. I think that was probably about the time that I started going back, because the shows were all on Netflix at that point, I think. And that's when I went back and I watched all the Voyagers that I had missed, and I watched the Enterprises I had missed, and I went back and rewatched, TOS and TNG and Deep Space Nine and all the ones that I had already seen and loved, and kind of got back into it. But yeah, there was that period in the early 2000s where I was kind of like, I'm okay. I don't need to be watching this every week. This isn't really for me, So yeah, there was a point. Simon Moody. Steve, I was going to ask something about the shit show of the last 2 weeks, but let's lighten it up with mental illness. not to step on a potential future topic for a Batman video, but why do you think his rogues gallery features such a large number of foes with serious mental disorders that are often much more front and center than for other heroes? Sometimes it feels like Bruce is the outpatient security patrol of heroes. Not that we don't need that in the real world right now, though. Well, I think it's because of the nature of Batman. At least when Batman is being written as a more down to earth character. I mean, when Batman was going doing crazy sci-fi adventures in the 50s and early 60s, it wasn't as much of an issue because he didn't have those constraints. But when Batman is written as a fairly grounded character, at least as far as superheroes go, um, a lot of his villains are also written to be grounded, and but they're also written to be very colorful and have gimmicks and have like a thing, like the Riddler has a thing where he just has to leave a riddle as a clue for his crimes. And, the Joker has to do crimes with this theme. And, all of all of Batman's villains, they have like little gimmicks and little themes that they stick to. And if you look at them today from a real world clinical perspective, you might say, oh, that's a mentally ill person. That's a person with a disorder that should be treated. They should be under a doctor's care. Like, they shouldn't be getting beaten up by a vigilante and thrown in some nightmare gothic asylum. Like they should be being treated with scientifically and medically and compassionately because they have a disease that is compelling them to act this way. And I just think it's a side effect of the nature of the character. you know um Superman has villains like that as well, but most of Superman's villains, because Superman is a superpowered guy, and the idea is, well, we'll create other superpowered bad guys to match Superman. You have characters like Brainiac or Bizarro or Metallo, who may or may not have mental health issues that they're dealing with as well, but for the most part, they're just big, kind of over the top sci-fi characters. And Batman doesn't have as many of those. Batman has more street level characters. And it turns out, as we look at them through modern eyes, that if they were real people, a lot of them would, as you say, have serious mental disorders. It's just one of those things that modern Batman writers have to deal with, because the writers who created these characters, 50, 60, 70 years ago, weren't really thinking in those terms. JDC is back home and tumor free. Awesome. That is wonderful. Good to hear. Hey, Steve, hope you're doing well. I'm taking a lot of naps. Randomly, have you seen the 90s time travel show 7 Days? Any thoughts? I've never seen it. I remember when it was on. I remember it was a UPN show that was on in what, 96, 97, 98, something like that. A few years into the UPN thing is when 7 Days came around. I remember it getting pretty good reviews. Like, people who watched it seemed to like it, and critics seemed to like it. But I never watched it, so I can't. Once again, a thing I have not seen or read that I cannot offer any opinion on. Greg, the semi-great Gildersleeve. In a recent video, you said Democrats should make "We Will End This" part of their platform. Given that a large number of voters still think Trump is protecting them from Dems, how might Dems appeal to such voters? Obama gave us the ACA, and Biden left with a strong economy, but that's apparently not enough to compete with gotcha politics. What should a Dem-run future U.S. look like, and how can they sell it? Well, I would start with, I don't think they should be trying to sell it to Republicans. They should be trying to sell it to disenfranchised and disaffected Democrats and liberals and leftists, because I think there are enough of those that we don't need to be bringing Republicans on board in order to win elections. I think if you can convince the people who don't vote, but if they did vote, they would vote for the Democrat. If you can convince those people that it's worth voting for the Democrat, then I think in terms of winning elections, especially at the national level, our problems are over. Like, I really don't think we need to be reaching out to Republicans to win elections. I think that's a disease that the Democratic Party needs to cure itself of, and should have cured itself of by now. And the way you sell that is just what you said. You look, we're the party. We're the party of healthcare. We're the party of higher wages. We're the party of building friendship and relationships with other countries, not starting trade wars. We're the party that wants to make our society stable, not chaotic. We're the party that wants to have a sane, steady, predictable, compassionate, humane policy toward immigrants, which would have to be a change from how the Democratic Party has done things more recently, but that's something that they should do. Instead of being Republican light, they should actually advocate for a truly good and reasonable and, humane border policy. And we're the party of equality. We're the party that says, look, you don't have to understand or even personally approve of gay people or trans people. But what you do need to understand is they aren't hurting you. And them being able to live their lives as they see fit and be themselves as they understand themselves to be does no harm to you and is really, in most cases, none of your business. And would you rather have a free society where as many people as possible are free, or would you rather have a society that is ruled by the questionable morals and arbitrary decisions of an autocrat? Because that's what you're going to have if you keep allowing Republicans to get in there. I feel like the Democratic Party's pitch is so much easier to sell because you don't have to sell it on fear. You don't have to sell it on ignorance. You can say, we're the party of freedom. We're the party of equality. We're the party of unions. We're the party of workers. We're the party of the environment. We're the party of healthcare. We're the party of science. We're the party of public health. We don't want to stick our heads in the sand if there's another pandemic. We don't want to pretend like we can just go on living our lives as usual and everything will be fine. We want to take steps to shorten it. We want to save lives. We want to vaccinate people. We want to have sane public health policies that will preserve life and help us get back to normal as quickly as possible, but in a way that won't make things worse in the long term. Like if Democrats actually campaigned on what they want to do instead of hiding from it and like being sheepish about it and acting like they're asking for permission, it's a really easy sell. It's just a really easy sell because it's clearly better than the nightmare of bigotry and violence that the Republicans are selling. It shouldn't be a hard sell at all. John Burns, I sent you a link about how American smart bombs are being used up fast with sales to other countries like Ukraine and Israel and concerns about other areas of the world to monitor. Replacing these smart munitions could take quite a long time. Of course, if the targets are wrong in the first place, smart bombs can only make things worse. Did you read any of that article by Greg Easterbrook? No, I did not. But in general, what you're describing, yeah, that sounds like a problem. That sounds like a problem. But no, I did not read the article. Cybach, who is incredibly tired of non-Iranians telling him his history and how he should feel. Greetings, Steve. Nowruz is next week, the Persian New Year, about rebirth and renewal. While I hate DJT and BB, I hate the IR's 47-year occupation of my people's homeland more. Until January, I opposed intervention. Iranians aren't naive. We know this isn't being done for us. But what I hear most from friends in Iran is the bombs are terrifying, them stopping more so. After the regime killed tens of thousands of protesters in January, the calculus changed. My hope for the new year, a free Iran. Boy, I hope so too. I hope so too. It's another situation that's a little bit like the Gaza situation in the sense that the two sides that are actually fighting each other are both bad guys. In this case, it's the Iranian regime and us, our government. Like there's nobody to root for there. because they're both terrible. But the people to root for are the people of Iran, who, yes, they deserve to live in a free country. They deserve to live in a country where they are not dominated by fanatics. And hopefully, if there is to be a silver lining out of this, if there is to be a bright side from all of this chaos and death and bullshit that is currently being perpetrated on Iran, that bright side will be, well, maybe there will be a better status quo to come out of this. Maybe the mullahs will be, or not the mullahs, the ayatollahs, maybe the ayatollahs will be toppled. Maybe this will be the opening that the resistance, the opposition needs to finally overthrow that regime and establish something that is a little more acceptable to the actual people of Iran. Maybe, and I hope so. I hope so for their sake. I mean, it would be nice to be able to have a version of Iran that the United States could have a better diplomatic relationship with, but that's really secondary. Like, the most important thing is the people that actually live in Iran should have a country that is not a fanatical religious dictatorship. Like, nobody should have to live under that kind of regime. So I hope so too. I hope there's a free Iran in the near future as well. Dana, hi Steve, happy Friday. Realistically, what do you think Sean Harris's chances are in the runoff? Please explain your reasoning. And then she does a cute little face. You could have saved a lot of characters with this and just said, "Hurt me, daddy." I don't think his chances are very good. I wish they were. I hope he wins. Sean Harris, for those of you who don't know, you probably guessed already, Sean Harris is the Democratic candidate in the special election to fill Marjorie Taylor Greene's vacant seat, because she resigned, and now they're having a special election to fill her seat in Congress in the Georgia 14th district. And there was an election, a special election, earlier this week, and Sean Harris actually finished first, but in order to win the election, you need to get over 50%. And Sean Harris got, I think, 34%, which was the largest amount of votes. Like, it was the largest plurality, but he didn't win outright. It just triggered a runoff between him and the second place finisher, who is the Republican, who also got in the 30s. But no, I mean, look, Sean Harris got about a third of the votes cast, and most of the other 2/3 of votes cast were distributed among various Republican candidates. So presumably, when the runoff happens, most of those Republican votes will coalesce around the remaining Republican candidate, and he'll win, and it probably won't be very close. I wish that was not the case. I hope it would be a miracle if Sean Harris wins, and I hope it is. I hope for a miracle. I would love it if your district had a Democratic representative in Congress. That would be great. But realistically, I just don't think it's going to happen. Not this time. Now, if Democrats and the local Democratic Party that I know you are active in keeps doing what it's been doing and pushing and getting out the vote and attracting new people, hopefully at some point you might get to a place where a Democrat could and will win that seat. But is it going to happen next month? I'm afraid not. But I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. And the fact that I think it's a long shot is even more of a reason for people to get out and vote. It shouldn't, I don't want it to be discouraging. Like, oh, don't vote. It's not, there's no point. You're going to lose anyway. No, please get out and vote. Please get out and vote for Sean Harris if you're a voter in Georgia's 14th district. But realistically, I would not set your heart upon it. None your business. Israel attacks Iran. Iran attacks Cyprus. Why no conspiracy theories? Why Iran attacked Cyprus? Iran did not attack Cyprus. It attacked Cyprus. Cyprus. You can't even spell it. You're asking why there's no conspiracy theories about why Iran attacks. You can't even spell it right. Usually the line is you couldn't even find it on a map. You can't even spell it. I don't know. Honestly, I think the real reason is why are there no conspiracy theories about why Iran attacks Cyprus? Most people don't know where Cyprus is or what, like that's the answer. Most people, especially outside of the Middle East, outside of that Mediterranean kind of area where Cyprus is, don't even know that Cyprus is there. So why would you have a conspiracy theory about Iran attacking a country that you don't even know about? And that's not, I mean, it shows ignorance on the part of people that think that, but that's the answer. Russell, hey, Steve, thinking about immigration control and how it's been applied during the Trump administration, the nature of it, which is aggressive to say the least. How do those who vote Republican not see a pattern? First control the borders, then attack Venezuela, now Iran, and reports are also saying he still has an interest in Greenland, not to mention Cuba now. It's a pattern, am I right? Is it not a dictatorship? Hell, he's not trying to hide it either, so how does he still have so many supporters? Because that's what they want. The people who are still supporting him and are still like enthusiastically supporting him, that's what they want. They want him to go and invade other countries. They revel in it. They like the violence. They like the idea of America throwing its weight around and going overseas and killing people that they don't like. That's what they want. They see it as positive. That's part of the problem, is that there is a statistically significant portion of our population in this country that positively loves this shit. That's part of the problem. And they've been there for a while. They haven't always had this kind of power, but that segment of the population has been around for a while. I remember after 9/11, in the run up to the invasion of Afghanistan, and then after that, the invasion of Iraq. I remember, and I was working at the truck stop that I worked at the time. And I mean, on an almost daily basis, people would come through there and they would say shit like, I think it's time for us to go over there and remind them who the big dog is. You know, they just wanted to see the army go over there and smash some stuff. Like that's what they wanted. That was the sum total of their political viewpoint on American foreign policy and military policy and how we should respond in the wake of 9/11. We need to just go over there and just fuck somebody up. Like there's a contingent of the American people that just want that. They're just violent, bloodthirsty people, at least up here. If they were ever asked to make any sort of contribution or sacrifice toward it, I'm sure they would scream bloody murder. But as long as they can sit at a safe distance and watch other people do it, they're all for it. That's what they want to see. They want to see blood and guts. And that sucks, but that's the way it is. And here's Russell's member question. Hey, Steve, I'm curious, have you already reviewed Voyager's season 1 episode titled Heroes and Demons? If not, I'll wait. If so, I need to backtrack your past videos. The reason I ask, I really enjoy this one. Well, what I would call it a doctor-centric episode, and for the first time showcases the fact that the doctor can feel the loss of someone, even if her character was fictional. Anyways, I really enjoy that one. Was kind of curious if you liked it. Also, say what you will, I also enjoy Lifeline very much. I have not reviewed Heroes and Demons, but Heroes and Demons will be part of the next batch of reviews. The theme of the next batch will be more holodeck episodes. There's a little preview for you. I haven't announced that yet because I still have one more Voyager batch episode to review next week. But the batch after the end of the Voyager batch will be more holodeck episodes, and there will be, I think, 3 Voyager episodes in that batch, and Heroes and Demons will be one of those. So in several more weeks and maybe a little bit more than a month, let's say, you will get to see my review of Heroes and Demons. And last question from the patrons and members from Air One Fire and Shives at Tenabra. Hi, Steve. I know you like Batman, the animated series, but what about the rest of the DCAU? Superman, Batman Beyond, Justice League, and Unlimited. There's an episode in which Batman goes to another dimension, back in time, to save Abraham Lincoln from the Confederate cyborg John Wilkes Booth. And then, of course, Lincoln saves Batman with his anti-Confederate cyborg axe. Also, how's Stargate going? Best wish. Still haven't watched any more Stargate. The only DCAU show other than Batman that I have seen every episode of is Superman. I haven't watched any Batman Beyond other than the Return of the Joker direct-to-video movie, which I thought was good. I've seen a good bit of Justice League in its various forms in both the original show and then Justice League Unlimited. I haven't seen every single one, but I've seen a few of them. I haven't seen that Abraham Lincoln episode. I'm going to have to look for that because that sounds crazy and amazing, but no, I've never seen it. So no, I am by no means a DCAU completist. The only ones that I have seen everything of, are Batman the animated series and Superman the animated series, which not coincidentally were the ones that were being produced when I was a teenager. Justice League didn't come around until I was a young adult. And by that point, I was like, well, if I'm home when it's on, I'll watch it. But I didn't make like a special effort to check it out. And I haven't gone back and watched all of it again. So anyway, that's it for the patron and member questions. Now let me do our traditional reboot of the live chat viewer because it always craps out on me at a certain point in the show. So let's see if I can get it back. Come on, baby. And while I'm doing that, while I'm booting it back up and hoping it comes back, it's time for us. There it is. There it is. It's time for a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. Now, as you all know who are regular viewers, this Stuffy and Friends short will go up live as its own standalone YouTube short tomorrow on this channel, starting at noon Eastern. But because you have all had the good taste and really wisdom to be watching this live stream and to still be watching it after it took an hour and 45 minutes to get through the patron and member questions, your reward is you get to see the brand new Stuffy and Friends short here before anybody else, and it won't be in the square aspect ratio. It will be full, glorious 16:9 aspect ratio of a kind that you will never see again until I finally get around to doing another Stuffy and Friends Omnibus Edition where I collect them all and release them as one great big video, which I'm hopefully going to be doing soon-ish. But anyway, having said all of that, please do now enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short.
So, I hate to rush you, but we planned to go get dinner almost an hour ago. How much longer do you think you'll be?
I said as soon as I finish this section of the script I'm working on.
Are you working on it?
Yes, I'm working on it. It's right there. I'm working on it.
Because it looks like you're just scrolling on your phone.
I'm working on the script. This is part of my process.
Which part?
The part where I research.
What's the script about?
It's for a MacGyver video.
And what are you reading on your phone right this second?
It's
No cheating.
It's a thread about a startup in Brooklyn that's working on a way to add protein to crack.
I'm sorry?
There's a startup in Brooklyn, and they're trying to add protein to crack so that when you smoke crack, you're taking in protein.
Are they also removing the crack's harmful properties?
No, it's still crack. It's just not as bad for you. Like, it'll kill you eventually, just like regular crack, but if you smoke it after a workout, it'll help with your gains.
I have two questions. First, how is that legal?
I have no idea. The thread does not address that issue. Maybe they'll do that thing Big Pharma does to get around their patents expiring and just add like an extra molecule to it or something. So it's just like crack, but technically not crack.
Intriguing. Second, what does that have to do with MacGyver?
MacGyver knows chemistry.
Okay. Should I just order some Chinese for dinner?
That sounds good. Do you want me to do it?
No, I'll take care of it. I don't want to take you from your work.
Thanks. Get me some veggie fried rice and a couple of spring rolls.
You got it. And maybe also some dessert crack?
No, but you go ahead.
I think I'll skip it too. I hear it's really addictive.
Yeah, there ought to be a law. Ta-da! Dana says, why is your head floating in the darkness? Because I insist on wearing a black t-shirt when I play myself in the Stuffy videos, and it doesn't show up very well against my blanket here. I was looking at the chat a little bit while the short was playing. Someone asked if I have seen The Expanse, and some random geek answered for me and is correct. I have seen The Expanse. I have never read the books, but I've seen the TV show. I like it a lot. I like The Expanse a lot. Oh, and somebody else said the Abe Lincoln Batman episode was a Brave and the Bold episode. It sounds more like a Brave and the Bold episode in terms of premise than a Justice League. I haven't seen it, but I will check it out. I have seen a few Brave and the Bold episodes as well, and I've generally really liked them. Let's see. Well, CMX says the 500 character limit worked for about 2 months. Well, there were 45 questions this time, I think. So, I mean, imagine how much longer it would have taken without the 500 character limit. Just think about that. There was another. Air One Fire says there's a MacGyver video on the way. Yes, there is. Now, it's not. I haven't started a script yet. That was just for that video, just to give me something to be supposedly working on while I wasn't working. But yes, hopefully this month there will be another MacGyver video. I would like to do another MacGyver video this month. I'm not sure exactly when. I know it's got to be soonish because we're almost halfway through the month. So it won't be this coming week, maybe the week after that. Because next week's videos are both written and spoken for, and they are not MacGyver videos. But hopefully, maybe one of the videos after that will be a MacGyver video. We'll see. Super chat from Carlisle the Cinephile. I've always wondered, is Hans Krieger doing a Werner Herzog impression, or is Werner Herzog doing a Hans Krieger impression? These are the questions that keep me up at night. Neither one of them is doing an impression. That is how Hans Krieger naturally sounds. He is not doing a Werner Herzog impression. That is simply how he naturally expresses himself. Now, if you were to ask, am I doing a Werner Herzog impression when I perform the role of Hans? The answer to that is obvious. And there were some super chats that came in while I was doing the member questions. I want to acknowledge a few of these. Joseph E. Preventure just sent in a super chat without a question. Thank you very much. Debbie sent in a super chat, says, thanks for all you do. Thank you very much, Debbie. I really appreciate it. John Burns with a super chat says, interested in more Firefly? Announcement Sunday. No, not really. I mean, I've seen like the videos that Nathan Fillion has posted, like on his Instagram and stuff, and I am mildly curious as to what it's going to be. But I'm not like a big Firefly fan. I'm not like, I don't wish it any harm. I'm not like anti-Firefly, but I'm not, oh boy, a Firefly thing. Like, it's not my thing. I don't really care. I got it, Cast Iron Chaos. I got it. I acknowledged it. Oh, geek, that's good. That's good. A friend said I would have a red lantern ring. Would you agree? Yeah, the red lanterns are powered by rage, correct? Green lanterns are powered by will. Blue lanterns are powered by hope. Orange lanterns are powered by greed, right? And red lanterns are powered by rage. I think that's, and purple lanterns or indigo lanterns. What are they? They're like healers, right? Or something like that. I can't remember what emotion they're supposed to be powered by. Like compassion, maybe. But anyway, I think you'd be a red lantern. Yeah, I think you'd be a good red lantern. Yeah. Stephen Clennard says that's how all German sounds. Nein, some Germans sound like this. You are incorrect, sir. They don't all sound like Werner Herzog. Some of them sound just like this. So let's not, let's not insult German people by caricaturing them like that. 225 AD says, you think anyone can reliably game out political consequences multiple election cycles into the future? I don't. That is why I think the argument in my question is bad. No, I agree with you. I think that's that. Yes, I think that's bullshit. No, you can't. You can't reliably game out political consequences multiple election cycles into the future because you have no idea what is going to happen between now and then. You're just guessing. You're just assuming, or you're building your theory around such generalities that it's basically useless. Yeah, I don't fucking know what is going to happen between now and 2028, let alone another whole 4-year term after that. I don't fucking know. How am I going to predict how voters are going to vote based on shit that has not happened yet? Yeah, it's bullshit. I completely agree with you. Plasma Burn Death says, did you get to see my comment on the Voyager episode you missed with Neelix dying, being brought back days later by nanoprobes, not seeing heaven, trying to unalive himself? Yeah, I think I saw your comment. Yeah. And yeah, I'm not reviewing that episode in this batch of Voyager reviews, but I'm going to get around to it at some point. And I know I talked about it in my, why Neelix actually isn't that bad video essay from a few years ago. I do like that episode a lot. A super chat from Damian Williams. Thank you very much, my friend. Hey, Steve, I just wanted to thank the people who helped me out when I was broke. To be continued in my member chat. Well, we will await that with bated breath, my friend. And thank you again. And here's a super chat from Donkey Hody. Have you ever used a YouTube video to fix anything? Fix the radio in my car today. Yes. Several years ago, I used a YouTube video to show me how to replace a belt on my clothes dryer. And I did it, and I was successful at it, and I was absolutely insufferable for the next several months. I mean, you would have thought I landed on the moon. Actually, I didn't just have to replace the belt. There was like one of the little wheels or pulleys or something under there that needed to be replaced. I replaced a couple of parts on the dryer, and I used a YouTube video to walk me through the process, and I did it successfully. And yeah, I was pretty smug about that. It's hilarious. All right, here's the other part of Damian Williams's comment from a member message. I got lucky that my dad had a pension from before Clinton and Gingrich combined to ruin retirement for everyone. Oh, you mean improve it, right? You mean make it better? We don't worry. Hey, we fixed welfare and we fixed retirement. Don't worry. It's going to be so much better, by which we mean so very much worse. Plasma Burn Death says 255 AD thinks we will have more elections. This is turning into a comedy stream. Now, I mean, that's funny, but like, I don't like when people say that because I feel like that's a form of capitulation. You know what I mean? That's like, it feels like a form of preemptive surrender. Well, Trump's not going to let us have elections anyway. Motherfucker, I'm voting. Like, I'm voting. Okay. If some shit happens after I vote to fuck it up, well, we're going to have to deal with that when we deal with it, but I'm fucking voting. Oh, Sinister Intelligence says the Voyager probe exhibit at the Air and Space Museum is 1-to-1. It's bigger than you can imagine. Yeah, that fucking, yeah, it's, I mean, if you ever see pictures of the actual probe, like before it was launched, and you see the engineers and stuff standing next to it, it's enormous. Yeah, you really don't get a sense of the scale of it if you just see like the videos of it or like the that like the animations of it like flying through the solar system or whatever, like it is enormous. 255 AD says, you think Neelix would be less annoying if the other characters didn't like him so much? Yeah, maybe. Maybe, yeah. Like, I think I've kind of talked about this in other either like a Trek Actually or just reviews of episodes where Neelix is prominent. I feel like Neelix would have been a way more interesting character if they kept him as kind of a weasel. You know, as kind of a two-faced guy who, you know, wasn't like a bad guy, but just, you know, he had like, he was a little two-faced. He was a little like he presented a certain side of himself to the crew to ingratiate himself, but when in private or it was just him and Kess or something, he was like, these motherfuckers don't know what they're doing. I just think that would have been more interesting. And I do think it would have been better if more characters in the show had thought that Neelix was an annoying motherfucker instead of pretty much everybody thinking he was at least tolerable. You know, like there really was even Tuvok. Like you can tell that Tuvok wasn't like Neelix wasn't Tuvok's favorite person, but it's not like Tuvok was like, God, I hate that motherfucker. You know, like pretty much everybody at most people would occasionally kind of like roll their eyes at Neelix, you know, or be a little bit annoyed or exasperated with him. But yeah, I think it might have been better if more people had been like, Neelix, just fuck off, Neelix. You know? Um, some random geek says Trump is trying to get the SAVE Act because he knows that elections will happen and it looks bad for the fascists. Well, yeah, exactly. If Trump is planning on, if Trump, I mean, I say planning. If Trump thought that he could stop the elections or exert some influence over them as things stand, you know, in order to get the result he wants, then why would he be pushing so hard to pass the SAVE Act? You know, why would he feel like he needed additional leverage if he was already saying, if he was already planning to just say no more elections, and then he thought that would actually happen? Plasma Burn Death says Voyager Across the Unknown was recently released, and I have it, and it is actually interesting. They let you do tons of stuff, like have Voyager Back Home Episode 1, arrest and let the Maquis go. So basically, just do a completely different series. um, Greg Gildersleeve with a super chat. Thank you very much, my friend. Quick thoughts on ending of Starfleet Academy season 1. Yes, I'll make it quick because I do have my season 1 review video that I have written and that I am shooting tomorrow, where I will give thoughts about the entire season, including the last episode at length. So I don't want to say too much here, but in general, for the most part, I liked it. I did have problems with it, and the problems I had with it were very similar to the problems I had with the What is Starfleet episode of season 3 of Strange New Worlds. I feel like Starfleet Academy, especially in the first episode, but recurringly throughout the season, it raised really interesting questions about Starfleet and the Federation and the nature of those institutions and the role of those institutions and the benevolence or lack thereof of those institutions, and then mostly just kind of chickened out at the end. And that was disappointing. It wasn't disappointing enough to ruin the show for me. And it really wasn't even disappointing enough to ruin the entire episode for me, but it did feel like they flinched. It did feel like they raised really interesting questions and then they tried to just find the neatest and least introspective answers to them and then just kind of move past that. And also, I think Paul Giamatti's character is way more interesting as a small scale dirtbag space pirate than as a guy who tries to take over the galaxy. So I didn't. I had problems with it, but overall, in terms of like characters and stuff, I liked a lot of it. So it wasn't ideal. It wasn't necessarily the ending I was hoping for what, for the most part, I thought was a really really good season. Um, but like I said, I'll have much more to say about it next week when my season review video comes out. 25 AD says, if they kept him as a weasel, would people have just said, oh, this guy is just low rent Quark? Well, some people might have said that, but it wouldn't necessarily have been true. I mean, you could have, I mean, there's more than one way. It's not fair to say, well, he's a weaselly character, he's just another Quark, if he has a distinct personality and is actually quite a different character who maybe has some things in common with Quark. Like, I don't think it would be fair to say, well, Data, he's just a low rent Spock. I mean, Spock and Data have certain things in common, but Data eventually develops into a completely unique character where I don't think it's fair to say, oh, he's just ripping off Spock. And they could have done the same thing with Neelix. But did I miss your super chat, Kurok? I'm sorry. Let me see. I did. I liked it, but I forgot to respond. I'm sorry. Without spoiling, did you enjoy Heroes and Demons? It's been so long since I've watched it, I can't remember. I'm looking forward to watching it again so I can know what I think of it. I have seen it, but I honestly don't remember whether I liked it or not. Let me see. Oh, Philip Kehoe says, did you watch Jesse's review of the finale? Yes, I did. And she and I agree on it very closely. Yes, Jesse's thoughts on the finale, especially the bits of it that I was just talking about, we are very, very close on that. We agree on it almost completely. Yeah, it's very much the same thing I thought. 255 AD. This is interesting. In the Star Trek universe, do you think people sometimes just park a shuttlecraft next to Voyager 1 and take selfies? I hope so. I would totally do that. If we lived in a universe where like you could just fly a spaceship at many times the speed of light and just zip right out to wherever Voyager is and be like, check it out. Yeah, I would totally do that. Wolfram and Hart, I was surprised about all the Star Trek content on Pluto. All the episodes 24/7. You can't pick, but TOS, TNG, Voyager, and DS9 running continuously. Yeah, I mean, for people who don't want to subscribe to a streaming service, and especially if just, for you don't want to support the company because of the current ownership, you don't want to subscribe to Paramount Plus. Yeah, Pluto TV has, I mean, like you said, you can't, it's not watch on demand. You can't be like, I want to watch my favorite episode of Star Trek. Like you can't just do that, but they do have 24-hour continuously running channels of just Star Trek that you can watch free with ads. And it is really cool. And I mean, Pluto TV in general is a really cool thing to have because yeah, it's a lot like traditional sort of linear TV. There's commercials. They do have on-demand stuff. Like there are shows and movies you can watch on demand, but the main feature is the linear sort of streaming channels that you just watch what's on at whatever time it's on. And it's pretty cool. I watch a lot of Pluto TV when I have the chance, when I am at leisure. Oh man, good luck with your super chat, Cast Iron Cast. I'm sorry it's apparently such a pain in the ass. Oh, Caitlin, of course. Please ask. Caitlin says, would you mind if I ask what I would have submitted had I not forgotten to actually send it due to brain mush? Please ask. Yes, of course. Of course. Blade Winter says, I would say they kind of tried to do Spock again with T'Pol. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's a more direct comparison because, it's, oh, look, it's the Vulcan character and she's the science officer and the first officer. Like it's a much more one-to-one sort of comparison with Spock. But even that, I think, it ends up being an unfair comparison. Like, I think by the end, and I mean, I have my problems with Enterprise, and I don't think it was by any means a perfect show, nor as good of a show as Classic Trek was. But I think by the end of the series, it wouldn't be fair to just say, well, T'Pol was just a female version of Spock. Like, she emerges as her own unique character. Kirog with a super chat. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Holtz from Angel? I really like the actor too, Keith Zarabajka. He was in Dark Knight 2 and in a Voyager episode. I thought Holtz was great. I loved Holtz as an antagonist on Angel. I thought he was fantastic. Really, really compelling, complicated character, like a villain who started out as a hero. I like Holtz a lot. He's one of my favorite recurring villains that they had on Angel. Okay, Caitlin, I'm looking forward to it. Okay, here's the super chat from Cast Iron Chaos. My dislike of vote blue no matter who, despite your reasoning, is the DNC already thinks the midterms will be handed to them on a silver platter. They need to be replaced this year, but I doubt it. Well, I mean, that's why you need to vote in the primaries. But again, if replacing them this year turns out to either not be a realistic option or it just doesn't happen, I still think, the like I always say, one of two parties is going to win. And I understand the issues with vote blue no matter who, because phrasing it that way and even saying like vote for the Democrat no matter what, like that does send a certain message to the DNC of, it doesn't matter what we do, they're going to have to vote for us. And I agree, that's not a good thing. But the truth is, it's going to be the Republican or the Democrat, and who would you rather have? Like, it sucks that it boils down to that, but it boils down to that. Super chat from Morgan. Simply, let me show you how it's done. Yeah, that's how you do it. Thanks, Morgan. Okay. So, and Caitlin's is going to be a multi-part one. So I'll wait until you've posted all of the parts, Caitlin, and then I'll backtrack and I'll read the whole thing. Okay. Plasma Burn Death says, Cali risk of being hit by Iran at 7,500 miles away, yet last year we kept Israel about 900 to 1,000 miles safe, hundreds of drones and cruise missiles. No, America first, it is Israel first. I fear with a lot of people it is, yeah. 225 AD says, I really enjoyed Netflix The Dinosaurs, but for the fact that Morgan Freeman narrated it. Remember when people were saying Me Too allegations would just totally destroy people? I remember when they said that. I remember very, very few examples of that actually happening. Okay. Caitlin says, okay, I really liked Academy, though I felt it was running out of momentum by the end. What's your favorite cultural detail it's added? For me, it's got to be the Klingon version of buying something for $1, a ceremonial battle to hand over the lease, though I also really enjoy the word quadratestical and the hints they gave about Klingon family structures. Speaking of which, a lot of show not tell this time round, which is nice, but a few fans argue vehemently based on missing those details. Oh well, c'est la vie. No, yeah, I like the Klingon token battle thing. I think that's a very, very Klingon thing. Like, we will not allow you to give us this planet. That is beneath our dignity. We're the Klingons. We don't accept charity. We will, however, accept a pretend battle. If you let us beat you in a pretend battle so we can tell ourselves that we conquered the planet, then we'll totally take it. Like, you fucking... But that's perfect Klingon mentality. Like that's how they are. They're just they're phony, fake goofballs. We won't take any charity, but we'll pretend to beat you for it. That's totally acceptable. Like, I love that. I love that because that's Klingons. Like, they're fucking clowns. Like they're fucking clowns. Who is messaging me during this goddamn show? Dana. Of course it's Dana. I'm silencing my phone, Dana. You can't be messaging me during the goddamn stream. Anyway, it's not that big of a deal. Anyway, but no, my favorite is it's also a Klingon thing, but I loved in that same episode 4, the Jaden episode. I loved that the significant Klingon weapon was the bow instead of a batleth. I love pretty much any time the writers take like an established alien culture like the Klingons that already has a bunch of stuff kind of added into the pot from previous shows. And instead of making it like a batleth, they make up a completely new thing. We've never seen this fucking bow before. No other Klingon ever had a significant bow that they like, but they made up a new thing for their show. And I loved that. So probably the bow, even though it's such a little thing. But, and yes, and I completely agree with you on the show Don't Tell. I thought they were really, really good with that, especially in terms of characterization. I really like that a lot too. Quadra goofballs. Yes, Steven, exactly. Let's see. Let me get a few more questions in here and then we'll start pulling this train into the station. Jason Clee says, good afternoon from here in Cleethorpes, England. Love watching your videos, Steve, and your sense of humor. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Tasby12 says, I'm tired of all the Star Trek stuff. I'm going to ask a baseball question. You're the new GM of the Orioles. Who's your pick as manager? Kirk, Picard, Cisco, or other? Well, it's got to be Cisco because the other two have no idea what the fuck baseball even is. It's got to be Cisco. HDJKSA with a super chat. Thank you very much. Says, Steve, I totally disagree. Klingons are prideful. Yes, they are, but to a completely ridiculous degree. I mean, yes, that's what that is. Yes, they're too proud to accept a gift from the Federation that will solve their problem of not having a homeland. They won't take it as a gift, but if you'll pretend to fight us for it, we'll totally take it. Like, yeah, that is them being prideful, but it's prideful to a completely absurd degree, to an almost cartoonish degree. 225 AD says, if the Klingons are really that rational, or maybe that should be irrational, should we respect their culture? That was my problem with that episode. I don't give a fuck if I respect their culture is made up. Their culture is not there to be respected. I don't care. I don't look at their culture in terms of respect or disrespect. They're not real people. If they were real people, it would be a question of respecting culture. They're made up people. I don't respect their culture. They don't have a culture. Their culture is made up for a TV show. My only requirement is it interesting? Does it make the Klingon characters that we meet more interesting and more entertaining or more compelling or more whatever? That's my criteria. So do I respect it? I don't know. I mean, they're, like I said, they're morons. If they were real people, they would be incredibly exasperating. Do you have any idea how exasperating it must have been, assuming that if we pretend they were real people, you have any idea how exasperating it must have been for Admiral Vance to realize, okay, we offered to give them a new planet for free that is perfect for them. And they'll only take it if we pretend to start a war with them over it and then let them win the pretend war. You have any idea how, okay, if that's what we have to do to save the Klingon species, I guess we'll pretend to fight them over it, but it's really kind of ridiculous that we have to do this because of the Klingons and their bullshit. Like that's it's not really a question of respecting their culture. You know, like I don't look at it that way. Their culture isn't there to be respected. Their culture is there as part of a TV show. Um, let me see. Oh, 255. You know, I don't have a problem with that. Give a message about respecting other cultures. Well, no, I mean, because that's the insight that allowed them to solve the problem. Like when Jaden says the Federation has to be the Federation, but Klingons have to be Klingons. That's what led to that insight of, you know, we have to let them conquer it. You know, we have to let them fight us for it. Like that was what led to that respect for Klingon culture. But it's not so no, that it doesn't. I mean, look, Klingon's gonna Klingon. You know, like I was saying in response to Caitlin's question, like that bit of the episode is perfectly in character for the Klingons as a culture based on other times we've seen them in Star Trek. Like that seems like a perfectly Klingon thing to do, you know? And so that was the insight of, oh, we can't just give it to them. We have to fight them for it because that's the Klingon way. And we have to let them take it the Klingon way in order to help them. Like that's sort of that's what I took as the point. Okay, Wolfram and Hart, I want to respond to this because I've seen this question from a lot of people. Is it possible that the doctor in Academy is really the living witness doctor? No, absolutely not. First of all, the living witness doctor, remember, was saved on a hard drive for like 700 years. So he's only actually, by the time period, whatever he is doing, if anything, by the time of Starfleet Academy's time period, he has only been active for what, 100 years, 200 years? And it's obvious that the doctor, as we see him in Academy, has been alive for the entire time. Like, he didn't spend most of the last 800 years on a hard drive. He's been alive and active and doing things. He has existed continuously the whole time. So it's clearly not the living witness doctor. Actually, I said someone asked me that question on Blue Sky the other day, and I gave basically the answer I just gave. And then they replied and they said, "What do you think he's doing now?" Like the living witness version of the doctor who left that planet. Like, what do you think he's doing now? And I replied, "Oh, his ship blew up a few days after he left." And the person replied and said, "Oh, I didn't see that. I must have missed that part." And I just let them go on believing it. Like I didn't jump in and correct them and go, "Oh, no, I was kidding." I just let them think it. Okay. Anyway, super chat from Carlisle the Cinephile, and then I'm going to start wrapping things up. Carlisle the Cinephile says, "Are there any pieces of religious media that you still have an appreciation for, even as an atheist? I'm a huge fan of things like Prince of Egypt, Jesus Christ Superstar, or even Veggie Tales." I haven't watched any Veggie Tales in a very long time. I do remember some decent jokes. Like there are some decent jokes in the bits of Veggie Tales that I've seen. So I mean, I can't say that. I mean, I guess in my memory, I have some level of appreciation for it, but I haven't watched it in so long. And also, I mean, it depends on what you mean by religious media, because if we're counting like any movie about Jesus as religious media, then yeah, I think Last Temptation of Christ is a masterpiece. I think Pasolini's Gospel According to St. Matthew is a masterpiece. I even have a really great appreciation for DeMille's original silent King of Kings. You know, yeah. So there are like biblically based films that some of which are pious and some of which are not, that I do have an appreciation for. Yeah, I have an appreciation for them as cinema. You know, um, so yeah, the answer is yes. Okay, and I'll if there's any final questions, I'll. Kirok says, but at the end of Living Witness, had another 700 years pass by. Oh yeah, well then it's way well then he's still on that planet. If I mean, depending on how much time elapsed between the first end of Living Witness and that epilogue where it's the last group, like from the future, depending on how much time elapsed there, then he might still be on that planet. He might not have left yet. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, okay, I'll come back to the chat in a minute and see if there's any final questions. But for now, let's start to wrap up the stream. First of all, thank you all so much for being here. As always, thank you for the great comments and questions and for just hanging out and making this a really fun stream. As always, if you enjoy my YouTube work and you would like to support it and make it easier for me to continue to do it, two really easy ways to do that on a continuing basis. You can become a patron of the channel by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives, or you can become a member of the channel by just clicking the join button right here on the YouTube channel. And either way, whether you become a patron or a member at any level of support, from $1 a month on up to whatever you can afford and whatever you think I'm worth, one of the perks that you can enjoy, if you choose, is you can submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away streams, and those are the questions that I answer in the first portion of the show. So if that's something that you think is cool, or you don't give a shit about that and you just want to continue to support this channel and allow me to keep doing this, patreon.com/Steve Shives, or become a channel member by clicking the join button. And should you choose to do one of those things, or if you're a real nut and you do both of those things, in which case you can submit 2 questions if you want to ask away, but that's not expected. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support. Also, don't forget, if you enjoy the YouTube stuff, I'm also a voice you can hear on a couple of podcasts that are a part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. There is Late Seating, the movie review podcast that I do with my very best friend Jason Harding, where we take a fresh look at classic films and see if they deserve whatever reputation they may have, be it good or bad. Our most recent episode that we recorded last week is our review of the Disney movie Frozen, that inescapable Disney animated film from 2013. It's hard to believe that it's been around now for 13 years. It feels like about 1300, doesn't it? It feels like Frozen came into existence like right around the 12th century, right? Anyway, you can hear what we think of Frozen on the new episode of Late Seating. And also there is the Ensign's Log, which is the Star Trek themed improv comedy podcast that I am on alongside Jason and our friend Amanda Billings, where the three of us play original characters of our own creation who exist in the Star Trek universe, and we have our own sort of hijinks taking place as the focus of our show, while occasionally like stuff like Star Trek stuff that you see in the actual shows is going on in the background, and sometimes we cross over with it, but usually we're just doing our own thing with that happening in the background. And we are currently on Deep Space Nine, and it's just a really super fun show to do. It's a fun show to record, and hopefully it's a fun show for you to listen to if you enjoy Star Trek, if you enjoy irreverent kind of satirical Star Trek stuff that pokes fun at and takes the piss out of Star Trek a little bit. I think you will enjoy the Ensign's Log, and if you haven't been listening to it, I would recommend that you check it out, and you can do so at the links in the description. Also, don't forget, and I know I saw our friend Some Random Geek putting the links up in the chat earlier, charitylinks.page. Please, please, please help some friends of ours who need a helping hand. If you have a few bucks left over at the end of the month and you would like to put them toward a good cause, go to charitylinks.page and you will see links to help out friends of ours who need a helping hand, and I would super appreciate that, and I know they would as well. So before we call this to a close, let me take one last pass through the recent messages in the chat, see if there are any final questions. So Random Geek says, I love Last Temptation of Christ. Morgan says, Willem Dafoe is a genius. I agree with that. Geek also says, you know what else is a great Jesus movie? Life of Brian. I agree with that too. The plane's coming in, Steven. The plane's coming in. I'm barreling this fucker. Soap up the runway. Here it comes. The landing gear is out. Cast Iron Chaos says, in Star Trek, I would guess both of the catalysts you mentioned caused the change of society, the eugenics wars and the invention of warp drive. Yeah, probably. Caitlin says, thanks for keeping a $1 tier. So many have $3 or $5 as the minimum now. Well, yeah, I mean, I figure if people want to give me $3 or $5 or more, they still can. Right? But like if somebody wants to give me $1 a month and that's all they can afford, why should I tell them they can't do that? Like that, I mean, not only is it makes the membership and the patronage like more inclusive for people who maybe can't afford to give as much, but also like why am I turning down money? You know, like if you want to support my channel, but all you can afford is $1, okay, great. Thank you very much. Why am I going to tell you no? Sorry, no, you keep your $1. Like that doesn't make sense to me. So I appreciate you noticing that. And yeah, just, you know, Oh, and Caitlin also says, do you find buying something for $1 just as funny as the fake battle? Because for me, I do. I always found a token peppercorn purchase to be a ridiculous farce. It's not a serious payment. But it's important for ways our property rights work to have paid something instead of just been given it, which, yeah, sounds... No, I agree with you. I think it's silly. Like especially with the peppercorn thing where it's like, it's obviously such a formality. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the peppercorn thing nowadays, they usually don't even give the peppercorn, right? It's usually just like, it's understood that like a peppercorn has changed hands in theory, but it's basically just like, okay, just so like, this is a business transaction. This isn't a gift. It's hilarious. And it's also kind of fucked up that some people feel like you can't accept a freely given and taken, gift from someone. That's not cool. But a business transaction, well, yeah, that's fine. Even if it's absolutely like just 100% a token transaction, somehow that makes it acceptable. But like a true gift given in exchange for nothing, like that's not okay. This is a little fucked up, don't you think? Anyway, land the plane, Steven says again. All right, I'm landing the plane. I don't want Steven to get that, All right. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to end the stream and I'm going to go listen to some Phil Collins. And I know that Stephen Clenard would enjoy that. And lay Ethe Ain play. I'm landing it. Okay. We're coming in for a landing. Thank you all so much for being here once again. I'll see you in 2 weeks to do another one of these, and I'll see you a bunch of times in videos between now and then. Thank you for everything. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. And take care, everybody.